Hello friends, it is Nomad Brad coming to you from my box truck. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Wednesday? Hello, hello, hello. Happy to see everybody made it into the chat. See how the live stream goes tonight. The spot that I'm at looks like the internet might be a little shaky. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we have a good evening. I see we got John C in the chat, making dinner, cooking up some chorizo. Adventures with Super Dave is here. Hello, Super Dave. You just sent me a photo of his Scion XB conversion. He's got a little awning for it. Looks pretty cool. Charlie Pepin in the chat. Hello, happy to see you. Diana Saylor in Kansas City, Missouri. Charles Serratos. Mr. Wynn says very topical because I just had a thermostat replaced on my van while traveling west. Mr. Wynn, I hear you. I replaced my thermostat last season. Had some overheating problems. It turns out my thermostat was stuck, and so ended up swapping it out. Diana Saylor says I have to replace my bus instrument cluster panel and speedometer cable. Polymath channel in the chat. Hello, happy to see you here. Will Ty from Kentucky. Jay Stewart, hello. Happy to see you here, Jay. Looking good, looking good. Everybody is here. They're vibing, they're talking, they're congregating. We got Nomad King Gamer as a moderator regulating the chat. Make sure everybody minds their P's and Q's. Robert Allman, hello, welcome, Robert. And Leroy from Las Vegas. Happy to see you here. Also, Down to Drift and Desert Runner Rick, also in the chat. Happy to see you guys. Okay, so we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna dive right in to the topic tonight. We're talking about what to do when you have a breakdown. There's two reasons I wanted to talk about this. Number one is because some people asked me, commented on a recent YouTube video, and some folks just wanted to know, what I do if I have a breakdown, or what preparations I might make. Let's see. Charlie Pepin says the video is lagging. I hear you, brother. I'm looking. I have like a speed thing down in the corner. I'm hoping it'll kind of stabilize. But see how it goes. See how it goes. Let's see. Let's try something here. So as a nomad, I think one of the biggest challenges is internet. Having reliable, fast internet. And so I was in a spot earlier today that had blazing fast internet, and yesterday I was getting 300 megabits down and 30, almost 40 megabits up. Just cruising along. And now, tonight where I'm at, is not that good. It's not that good tonight. So, we will see if this picks up a little bit. I'm in a spot that's technically not that bad, but yeah, it's just not happy right now. We'll see if it picks up a little bit. Suron Dave says he's offering Starlink. That might be cool, man. Try to use the Starlink. Yeah, I'm parked next to Suron Dave tonight, and that's something else I was going to talk about. So I have, in the past for internet, I've used Nomad. You see it right back here, which is on the Verizon network. Overall, it's been a good experience. Sometimes it's laggy. And then I have this Connect 10 router, which was really good yesterday, but I'm having trouble with it today. So it's like all the cell tower based internet, it's just, you know, it's not super reliable. And so for most nomads, if you're not, doing something that requires fast internet all the time, like I feel like most of you guys are cruising and, you're going to watch some shows or send some emails, but overall you're probably not like doing a lot of high speed internet stuff. But for me, really the only thing I do actually is live streams that really require internet. Like when I'm uploading videos, I can wait, I can move around to different locations, and it's not a big deal. But yeah, when I do these live streams, I kind of need internet when it's time for live streams. So I am going to get Starlink. And I was going to get it anyway this winter because I'm planning to do a build out in the Arizona desert, and there ain't going to be any reliable cell service. So I was going to get Starlink anyway. And, I might just have to pull the trigger on it because I'm just kind of tired of not having internet I can rely on. So, okay, whoa, that's crazy. What's going on here? Okay, guy. I just switched over to Sir on Dave's Starlink, but it's not that much better, which is crazy. Look at this. Hold on, guys. So this is speedtest.net, which lets me just check my internet speeds. Now it's picking up. So download speed, and you can see on the bottom it says Starlink, SpaceX Starlink. Download is 100 megabits, which is pretty good. But upload is really what matters for live streams. It's like how much data can I push out? And the upload isn't, it's not bad, but like 8 is not really that good. So, what's a Nomad gonna do? It's like a dial-up chat. Charles Serratos, I hear you, brother. Yeah, so there's Starlink, 104 down, but only 8.4 up. So, like, when I look at my little, let me know how the video looks for you guys, but when I look at my little speed test down in the corner, like my little data thing, it shows me like a red. It shows me it's not that good. Let me see. I'll close out of my video editing software. Let's see, what else do I do? I can turn off my iPhone Wi-Fi. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I have, everything is off. Now it's only the computer that's on internet. Okay, let's see where we're at. Yeah, Will, I was thinking about the Mini, the Starlink Mini. Matt AK, no, I'm on the beach, bro. I'm right on the corner, on a corner parking lot. So there's not even any obstructions. I would show you guys where I'm at, but it's dark time. It's dark right now, but I'll show you guys this. Hold on. Here's a photo I took earlier. So this is exactly where I'm at, right on the edge of a parking lot in San Diego. Sir on Dave is parked right next to me. He pulled in a little bit after I took this photo, but just picture another box truck right next to me. But yeah, we're right on the edge. There's no obstructions, really no, nothing in the way, and we are pretty much in the middle of San Diego. So it's really not, yeah, there's no reason for it to be slow. But it looks good now. My speeds are looking better. I'm getting 46, 82 kilobytes per second. I'm getting the green light, so I think we're good. I think we got it figured out. I think Sir on Dave's Starlink comes to the rescue. Sir on Dave coming to the rescue in general. All right, guys, let's just dive into it. I'm tired of complaining. So the main reason I wanted to do this was, number one, people ask me, what do you do when you have breakdowns? Because it's a valid concern, right? People that are living in vehicles, traveling, you're far away from home, you don't have your normal support network. So what do you do when you experience a breakdown? People want to know. And then the other reason I wanted to have this discussion tonight is because I just had a breakdown 2 days ago. And so I'll share with you guys some information. I'm just reading the chat really quick. Okay, anyway, here we go. So this is what happened. 2 days ago, I was installing some solar for a client, and her van was parked in her like condo complex. And so I drove my van out to her condo complex. I parked right next to her ProMaster, and I did some installation work, and I actually stayed overnight. And so I noticed, I pulled in at like, say 2 p.m. and I started working, and maybe about 5 o'clock p.m. I was just kind of going back and forth to my van, and I noticed there was like a puddle of water underneath the front of my engine. And so I'm always, keeping an eye out for that kind of stuff. And so I saw the little puddle, and I reached down, I touched it. I could tell it was antifreeze. It was orange in color. And I looked up underneath, and I could see there was like some drips coming off the bottom of my radiator. And so I said, well, this is no good, but also I'm on a job, so I'll deal with it later. And fortunately, the place I was staying at, or I was parked at, I could stay overnight. So I wasn't too concerned. So I just kept working. And then what's interesting is the next morning, when I woke up and then got out and went to do a little more work on the ProMaster, I came out to my van the next morning, and this is what I saw. Took a little video for you guys so I could share it with the people. So here's the water stain, and you can see it just actively dripping. And what's interesting is at this point, I've been parked in that single spot without driving or starting the engine for almost 24 hours. So it's interesting that I drove all the way to this spot, no issues, and I parked it, and then it didn't like have any problems until after it was sitting. But if you look at this photo, if you look at the larger puddle that's kind of dry, that's from the previous night. And then the smaller puddle on top that's wet, that was, from the morning. So definitely had a coolant leak. And so I looked at the radiator. I looked down inside, and I could kind of see that there was like a wet spot on it where there was fluid leaking. So and so basically, it wasn't like a full-on breakdown where I wasn't driving and the vehicle didn't like physically break down on me, but it's kind of a breakdown in the sense that there is a problem with the vehicle and you can't really safely, continue to use it until you have done some type of repair work. Okay, so here we are. Now, I would really want to apply this to everybody, right? Because everyone's going to have their own unique situation when they break down. Hopefully, you're around family or friends or some type of support network, but there's also a pretty big chance that you might be just by yourself traveling. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of go through with you guys and explain my process and what actually happened to me in a breakdown. So I want to take you back to 2018. This was my first year of van life and also my very first breakdown. That was my very first van right here. This is a 2006 Ford E250 Econoline mid-roof. And so what happened to me is I was just driving down the highway about half an hour out of Bend, Oregon, and I heard a big bang from the engine. and then the engine got really loud and it sounded like my muffler blew off or something. And long story short, my Ford Econoline, they have an issue on this engine where it can shoot spark plugs up out of your cylinder head. And so that's what happened. It shot out spark plugs and it was basically undrivable. And so, what do you do when you break down? That's the question, right? So the first thing that you want to figure out is you want to try to identify the situation, right? And so for everybody, this is going to depend on your level of familiarity with vehicles and mechanics, right? So some things like would be more easy for everyone to take care of, right? Like, did you blow a tire? If you blew a tire, that's not as difficult. Jack up the rig, swap out the tire, or you could try to call AAA, that type of situation. But then the next thing you might want to consider is if it's not something that you obviously know what's going on and something you can find a solution to easily, then you might want to consider if it's not drivable. Okay, let me go back a little bit. The next thing to figure out is, can you drive it? And if it like broke down but it's still drivable, then I would say your best case scenario would be to drive it to a mechanic. So I would pull out my phone, pull out Google Maps, and then I would look for mechanics in the area, whatever is in kind of a close proximity to my current location. And when you're looking for a mechanic, I always recommend, nowadays it's easier with Google reviews. You can read the reviews and try to find someone that seems trustworthy and doesn't have a lot of complaints. And so that would be my first recommendation, is if you don't know what the problem is, you can't fix it yourself, the first thing obviously is you got to find a mechanic. So the first thing is if it's drivable, find a mechanic you can drive to. That's step number one. If it is not drivable, then you still want to find a mechanic, but you might consider having it towed. And this is going to be kind of depending on where you are at physically. If you're in a location where it's safe to park, then you also could consider just staying parked where you're at, because the great thing about breaking down in your home is that you have everything with you, right? So in theory, you have food, you have water, you have a bathroom, a toilet, you have all your comforts. So it kind of takes some of the stress out of the situation, that you're not like, oh my God, I'm stranded, how do I get home? You're already home, right? So all you got to do is figure out how you can get your home rolling again. So if you're in a situation where you're in a good place to stay for a while, then you can kind of just take a deep breath and then you might consider calling a mobile mechanic who could come look at your vehicle where it's at. And then that way you could potentially avoid a tow bill, and it would just be kind of smoother on you and it's easier to have them come out to you. And if it is a repair that's not too crazy, then there's a chance a mobile mechanic could fix it for you on location, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, for me, in this picture, I was in the middle of nowhere. There was no mobile mechanic. I was 30 miles down a small highway outside of Bend, Oregon. So what I did in this case is here's the first thing I did was I found a mechanic. And so I think the most important thing to do is figure out where you're going to take the vehicle before you figure out how to get it there, right? Because when you're calling like a tow company, they're going to want to know, where you're going, and the distance traveled is going to kind of reflect what the cost is of having it towed. So it's better to not call a tow truck company until you know where you're taking it. And so something else to consider, right, when you're looking for a tow company, for a mechanic, is not just finding, first you want a mechanic that's physically close to you, so it's not a huge tow bill. The second thing you want is a mechanic that has good ratings. So you want to look at their reviews on Google, make sure they have, I mean, hopefully at least 4 stars. Make sure, no one's really trashing them in the reviews. And then another thing you might consider is you might ask them if you can stay in your vehicle on their property while they're doing the repairs, because that can save you from having to rent a hotel or the stress of being displaced from your home. And that's what happened for me in this situation. Luckily, I was in small town Oregon. The mechanics were super cool, and the company was called Integrity Automotive, or Integrity Auto Services. This is a picture from the waiting room with my dog Lucy, my travel companion at the time. And so this tow truck company was really cool. They let me have my vehicle towed to their yard while they were not there, because it happened like on a Saturday or a Sunday or something. So I got my van dropped off at the tow yard. I stayed in my van in their rig overnight. And then also, while they were working on my van during the day, they didn't want me in it because, they had to put it on a lift and do all kinds of work. But I was able to hang out in their waiting room with Lucy, and I had my laptop, so I was doing some computer work. And so it actually wasn't that bad of an experience. They had Wi-Fi and bathrooms and free coffee. So it turned out to be a pretty good situation. And if I remember correctly, I think they had me repaired and back up on the road, I think the same day. I think I only had to stay the night before they could look at it. And then from them looking at it to fixing it, I think was just one day, if I recall correctly. It's been a while. So that's kind of my thought process, right, on when you have a breakdown. And I think for most people, having a breakdown, it's all a mindset exercise, right? Because when you have a breakdown, it takes you out of control, right? And it puts the situation in the control of fate, in a way, right? Because it's like all of a sudden you don't know what's wrong. You're going to have to go somewhere you weren't intending to go. You're going to have to spend money you weren't intending to spend. And so it can make you feel a little bit vulnerable, or maybe a little bit helpless, or a little panicky. But I think the main thing to consider is, the first step is that you have your whole home with you. So everything you need is there, right? You really shouldn't be too stressed out, in the sense that you don't have to get anywhere. You're already home. The second thing is that there's really no big time frame, right? Like, it's not like you have to for most people, it's not going to be like, I have to get my van fixed so I can get back home or get to work. For the most part, if you're living this lifestyle, you could probably spare a couple days here or there for a vehicle repair. So I feel like if you can just mentally kind of frame your mindset that, like, okay, we have a breakdown, it's happening, but then kind of take a big deep breath and just realize you're on the journey. This is all part of the adventure of being a nomad. There's a lot of unexpected stuff, a lot of exciting, unexpected things, but there's also some unexpected things that are not enjoyable, right? But that's all kind of part of the balance of life, right? Like, you get really cool, exciting times, but also you get some times that aren't so exciting. But this is the trade-off we make for not living the ordinary, monotonous life, right? Like, we're consciously choosing to not take the safe path of living in an apartment, just every day is the same, taking an Uber to your, desk job, having Uber Eats deliver your food at night. I mean, that lifestyle, it is available. It's very predictable. It's very routine. It's very safe. But if you're living this lifestyle, you have to kind of accept that that's not going to be your reality, right? That's the trade-off, is you're living on the edge, you're experiencing life, but it's going to be unpredictable. So you have to kind of go into nomad life with the understanding that You're going to have breakdowns. You're going to have situations that are outside of your control. And so if you can just mentally accept that and be prepared for it, it makes it a lot easier. And so speaking of breakdowns, I had this breakdown in 2018. And then the next breakdown I had was in 2020. And that was in my first box truck. This is abundant for you that have been subscribers for a while. And this is before I had the wrap on it, before I had the window on it. It was a pretty new build out. I'm going to pause really quick and say, so Chris B commented and said, my biggest fear is breaking down. I'm just about to pull the trigger on a cheapish box truck, but worried that within the first few months, they're going to have to replace the whole engine. So yeah, one thing I want to say, Chris B, is, and I was talking to Sir on Dave about this just yesterday, or just this morning actually. I think it's a good idea if you get an older box truck, right off the bat, I would replace a lot of stuff that is going to be prone to failure. Like when I bought this box truck, the first thing I did when I bought it, I replaced the starter and the alternator and the battery just right away. And those are all really easy change outs. I could do all three of those things in like half a day. And I should have replaced the radiator. That's also a very easy change out. So anyway, that's what I'd recommend for you, Chris B. If you're going to get a cheap box truck, replace everything you can right off the bat. Thermostat, spark plugs, you know, any of those kind of items, plug wires, depending how old it is, it might have a distributor. I would try to replace all that stuff ahead of time, because it's way better to replace it on your own terms in a time and a location that's convenient, rather than being God knows where on some desert road and then it breaks down. So I would try to do that all ahead of time. And yeah, that's my best advice. And then anything you don't want to replace on your own, I would still probably pay a mechanic to do it just for peace of mind. Like with this box truck, I didn't want to do any suspension work on it, but I paid a mechanic to do a bunch of preventative work. The shocks, U-joints, bushings, all kinds of stuff underneath on the suspension. I had him do all that before I went on my first road trip to New Mexico, because I knew I was going to be going a couple thousand miles, and I didn't want to have to worry about, you know, breaking down or having anything crazy. Okay, so something else I want to mention. This is really important for anybody that has a vehicle with dual rear wheels. That's going to be most box trucks, most shuttle buses, small schoolies might have some dualies on the back. And so this is my advice to you. So on my first box truck in 2020, I was in Oregon. Fortunately, I was with some friends, and we were going camping out deep on some BLM road. And we went in at like 10 o'clock at night. It was pitch black. And we went like 5 miles in down this dirt road to get to this camp spot. And because it was dark and I wasn't able to see that well, yeah, and Wayward Captain, thank you. Also ambulances. So ambulances also have rear dualies. So I'm going down this road 5 miles in, super dark. I can't see that well. And I end up going through this kind of narrow passage. And I ended up scraping my outer tire, my driver's side rear dually, against a rock. Scraped it against a rock, and it blew right open. Just and let me tell you, if you've never had a dually blow, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I have my driver's window down, and I could feel the air, which doesn't really make sense, but I could feel like the air from my dually clear up, rush into the driver's cab. Anyway, totally shredded the tire. And most dually vehicles, shuttle bus, box truck, ambulances, do not have a spare tire. Most do not. And so at the time, I didn't really know any better, right? All I knew was I had duals in the back. I had one tire that was totally shredded, and me and my buddy were like, standing around looking at it, and he was like, hell, let's just jack it up and pull that outer dually off, and we'll go into town and get it replaced. And so that's what we ended up doing. I pulled off the outer wheel, threw it in the back of the box truck. So now I only have 5 wheels, 2 in the back passenger side, 1 in the rear driver's side, and 2 in the front. And so we drove the rest of the way into the BLM, camped, had a good time, drove out, and once I got on the highway, it actually drove really, really well. And so we ended up continuing our little journey, and I drove for 3 days all over the mountains in the Mount Hood National Forest of Oregon with only 5 wheels. And I didn't have any problems with it. And then when we were done with our trip, I drove down into town, went to America's Tire, and got a new tire. So my story for you guys is, if you have a rear dual and you blow one out, you can just remove it, throw it inside, and fix it whenever it's convenient. Don't stress, don't worry about it. You're not stranded, you can keep driving. And what else is cool is if you blow one of your front wheels, the front wheels are the same as the rear dually wheels. They're just inverted on most vehicles. So like if you blow a front tire, you can pull off a rear dual, flip it 180 degrees, and mount it on the front of your vehicle. So when you have a vehicle with dualies, you technically have 2 spare tires at any given time. So that's my biggest tip for anyone with a dually. If you blow out a tire, it's really not that big of a problem. And it happened to me again about a year ago in Texas. In this box truck, I have a video on my YouTube channel. I blew out a tire driving down the highway in Texas, and I just pulled over, pulled it off, tossed it in the back, drove an hour and a half to El Paso, and got it replaced. So that's my tip for you guys. If you blow out a tire on a dually, it ain't no problem. Don't worry about it. Just rip that sucker off and fix it when it's convenient. Okay, so now I want to go back and talk about my current breakdown. What's going on? Give you the updates. But first, I'm going to check the chat really quick and just see if anybody has any questions or comments. Jeff is in Oregon. Hello, Jeff. Happy to see you. Hope you make it to Arizona this winter. I will definitely be at Schoolie Palooza. Joe Teeter, hello from Michigan. Happy to see you, Joe. Chris B said that's useful to know. Starter, alternator, radiator, battery. Thank you. Yes, Chris B, all that stuff's, these box trucks are pretty easy to work on. All that stuff is super simple. The spark plugs are a little more challenging because you have the doghouse and you have to like reach inside. But I've done them. I've changed out all the plugs myself on Econolines. So it's still doable. But yeah, I would definitely do starter, alternator, battery, radiator, serpentine belt. Get a new serpentine belt just right off the bat. Those are all your major things. Also, you can look at the condition of your hoses, like all your water hoses, your coolant hoses. Just kind of give them a squeeze. Make sure they're flexible, but also they feel like, you want them a little bit stiff. You don't want them super squishy, but also you don't want them like super hard where they're brittle. So there's kind of a sweet spot, but just kind of give a squeeze on all your coolant hoses and make sure everything feels good. Diana Saylor says, thank you for the pep talk for breakdowns. It's the mindset that makes it a positive experience or a negative one, just like a regular home has breakdowns. I agree, Diana. It's really just mindset. You just have to realize you're on the wild Nomad ride, and there's going to be some, twists and turns along the way. But this is all part of the adventure of life. Let's see what else we got going on. Avery Doberman, dude, one time I had a blowout on my semi-truck, and I ducked because I thought someone shot at me. Yeah, I believe you. It's super loud when you blow out a dually, and I know Semi-trucks are even worse. I've seen the videos of people trying to change semi-truck tires and they blow up and it like throws the technician across the floor. Those things are crazy. Rockman says, what's your water setup? How many gallons? I have 30 gallons of fresh water. And then I only have a 10-gallon gray water because it's only for the sink. There's no shower in here, and I don't end up really using that much sink water. Most of my, yeah, it's like a little bit of washing dishes and brushing my teeth, but that's pretty much it. So I have a 10-gallon just right into the sink, drips right into it. Diana Saylor says, thank you, this info is helpful. You're welcome. Happy that it helps out. Chris B says, rad advice from B-Rad. I appreciate it, Chris B. Emily Rose says, hi, Brad. What's the cost of your business wrap? Did you get it in San Diego? I will tell you, Emily Rose, my vehicle wrap, I had it done by my Nomad friend in the desert at Schoolypalooza last winter. He did the whole cab. The cab was white. Now it's orange. And he did the logos on the side. And honestly, I'm not even going to tell you the price because he really hooked me up like as a friend deal. And he didn't charge me enough. So like what I paid, I paid too little. So I'm not sure. I would assume if you were going to hire a business to do something like what I have, I assume it would be a few $1,000s. Rhymes with Orange says, I don't have any questions. I appreciate your Rhymes with Orange. Fast Motoring comes in with a super chat. I appreciate you, brother. Much love from Venice, California. God bless. Thank you. I appreciate it. Will Ty says there's an app called Tinker that you can call and a mechanic will talk you through certain vehicle repairs. That's good to know. I had no idea about that. An app called Tinker. Tinker? Did I spell that right? Yeah, Tinker. Skip the auto shop. Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can. Live help from a gearhead. Okay. How it works for DIYers. Ask for help. Submit a project by answering questions. An expert will help you. You'll be connected to an expert via video call. Okay, that's pretty cool. So there you go, guys. That's some good knowledge. Thank you, Will, for mentioning that. If you guys want help with DIY repairs, you might think about checking out Tinker. Matt AK says, not emergency related, but heading out this weekend to pick up my new travel trailer. Nomad life begins in May. Happy to hear it, Matt AK. Happy to hear you're joining in the Nomad gang. Okay, here we go. Yeah, great app. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, here we go. So I was going to share my experience with what happened with the van, and then also kind of a thought process I had. And so I knew right away the radiator needed to be replaced. I've never replaced a radiator before. It's just one of those things that I haven't had to do. And it's something that I would normally tackle this project on my own. But I wasn't comfortable doing it my first time by myself. And then the problem is when you pull the radiator out of your van, then your van is, you can't drive it. And so one thing that I'll mention is if you're going to do a repair on your vehicle, if you can, you want to get the parts ahead of time before you start the repair. And also you want to try to verify that you have the right parts, because I've had it before where I go to AutoZone to get, like when I did when I did the alternator on this box truck when I first bought it, I went to AutoZone, gave him the VIN. He says, this is the one for sure. And I got it back and went to swap it, and I could clearly see it wasn't the right part. So that's something else that, you know, you'll have to think about. You don't want to start a repair that's going to immobilize your vehicle if you don't have the parts or if you have the wrong parts, because then you're kind of stuck in a bad situation. So anyway, with this radiator, I didn't really want to do it by myself, having never done it before, and without any type of, like, you know, support vehicle or having someone else there that could help me or go get parts. So the first thing I did was called my friend Zach, who lives here in San Diego, and asked him if he knew a mechanic. He did. And so fortunately, the van was still drivable. It was just leaking coolant. So I drove it to the mechanic, and he didn't have time to look at it that day. But he said he could look at it like the following day, right? So I went ahead and parked it. And then I called my dad and kind of told him what was going on. And he said, well, you might consider using some stop leak. Like, they make a product called radiator stop leak. You like pour it in and it plugs up the holes. And I watched the Scotty Climber YouTube channel. He's like a pretty famous YouTube mechanic. And he recommended a certain brand and said it works pretty good. Because my thought was, if I can put stop leak in it and it patches it up for a while, then I can just replace the radiator when I get back to my dad's. So that was kind of the path I was leaning, because I didn't really want to pay a San Diego mechanic. I'm sure it would have cost me $1,000 to have that radiator changed out, you know, here in San Diego. So I wasn't really wanting to do that. So I was leaning towards doing the radiator coolant repair. This is the DIY stuff, and then taking it back to Yuma, to my dad's. And then I messaged Suron Dave, the homie, who was up in Los Angeles, and he was like, I told him what was going on, and he was like, oh, that's a super easy replacement. You don't have to do anything too crazy on it, and I'm in San Diego. And so Suron Dave happened to be in San Diego, and I told him what was going on, and he was super just helpful and eager to help me swap it out. And so within, I think, a couple hours of me telling him what was up and sending him my location, Suron Dave swooped on in, and we just swooped in and ripped out the old radiator. And we kind of looked at, you know, what it needed, what size fittings it needed, and then he called one in to the local O'Reilly's. Fortunately, there was one just right down the street. And so with Suron Dave there, of course, he used to be a mechanic, so he has the knowledge and the skills to do it pretty swiftly. But also he had his box truck, so we were able to go in his truck to O'Reilly's and pick up the new radiator. And then he got it put back in just as fast. It was a really quick job. And I wanted to help, but I really wasn't able to help that much. It was just, clearly it was an easy job for him, and it was kind of a one-man job. There wasn't too much to do, so I just kind of stood out of the way while Suron Dave did his thing, and super grateful he was able to help me with that. So here's a picture right here. This is me just taking a selfie while Suron Dave's doing the heavy lifting. But that's another thing to consider, guys, is when you're out traveling, you can, you know, try to lean on the Nomad community. And so whether it's just personal nomads that you've met along the way, you know, whether it be your own friends that you have through Instagram or, you know, made contacts with, or if it's in like the Facebook groups, right? Like, there's a ton of Facebook groups for van life. There's a van life San Diego group that I'm in. There's, you know, van life groups for kind of all different areas. So you could also lean on those groups, whether it be just for, you know, a simple thing like maybe you just need a ride to the auto parts store, or maybe somebody knows a trustworthy mechanic. But definitely reaching out to your community is also just another great way to, you know, make it all work out smoothly for you. So that was my experience, and I'll show you some photos here. So this is the radiator we pulled out. It was the original radiator from 2007. The vehicle only has 130 something thousand miles on it, so it's not a high mileage vehicle, but the radiator was cooked. So if you look here, you can see kind of that discoloration. And so that's one spot where I believe it sprung a leak, where it's just dark like that. I think that's the coolant coming through. And then you can see it trails all the way down to the bottom of the radiator, but there's no dark spot above it, right? So it looks like it sprung a leak, and then it was dripping down on the side. And then here's another shot of the top of the radiator. So it had a couple big cracks in the plastic housing. So it definitely was just a cooked radiator, time for a new one. So now it has a brand new high quality Murray radiator from O'Reilly's, ready to go. And I'll tell you what, this van has had all the goods swapped out on it. New starter, new battery, new alternator, new thermostat, new coolant temperature sensor, all the goodies. It's ready to go. New spark plugs, new coil packs, new transmission, parking brake. All the maintenance stuff has been done. The radiator was kind of the last thing I hadn't really worked on. Matt AK says radiators are cheap, worth replacing if you have to take them out for any other reason. Yeah, I agree with you. And they're 10 plus years old. Yep, definitely. And after seeing how easy it was for Dave to swap this, I would totally do it myself again if when I need to. Super chat from Diana Saylor. Thank you so much, Diana. I appreciate you. Appreciate the super chat. Keeps the wheels turning. Let's see what's going on. Wayward Captain has a little story here. I was heading to an album release party for my favorite band in Tennessee when my 2003 E450 7.3 had quite the tantrum and broke down. Missed the party, spent 4 days in a truck shop lot and $3,000 plus getting a mobile diesel tech to come out and replace the injectors. As much as it sucked, the silver lining of breaking down in your rig is that you're in your rig. That's a great story, Wayward Captain. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. And that's what I try to share with people is it's like, yeah, you're broken down so you can't travel, but you have every computer work. So at the end of the day, it's like there's no rush to go everywhere. You have everything you need. So it is kind of comforting. Let's see what else we got. John Picone says, see if you only had Tinker. There you go. Tinker app. I'm definitely going to remember that. Coming in clutch. Carefree Highway says, spend a few money on a code reader. Keeps the mechanics honest. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Or agree with you, Carefree Highway. I do have a scanner. And so you guys should invest in one. Now with Amazon, they're so cheap. OBD2 scanner. And what's cool is they have ones that connect to your phone with a Bluetooth app. And so it'll give you all kinds of crazy data that you can't get off like a regular scanner. Does this show you what it looks like? Let's see. There's kind of a picture. So yeah, it's not just the check engine light, right? Like you plug it in, it'll tell you what codes came up. You can clear the codes. Some of these will give you live data. So while the vehicle's running, it'll show you like what the temperatures are and stuff, which is a little more advanced, but it's just good information to have. But I would say you don't have to get the expensive ones. The one I have is a cheap. It's like one of these. And so even if you get this cheap like $20 one, that's basically what I have. What's cool about it is when you get like the check engine light comes up, or your ABS light, or some kind of an error light comes up, this code reader, you can plug it in and it'll tell you what the error codes are. Like on this, it says P1015, and then you can just Google that. And so you can type into Google, engine code P0115, and then it'll tell you what it means, what the possibilities could be. And then at least that way, when you call a mechanic, you have some education. So you can tell them, this is what happened, this is my error code. And so already you can kind of get an idea for what might be needed, or what, kind of costs might be associated with making those repairs. So definitely good advice. This is only 22 bucks. Not a bad idea to pick up a code reader. Just carry one with you. Mischief Maker says, I lost my alternator on my van, so I used my 10 amp battery charger plugged into my solar inverter, hooked it up to my main battery, drove it a week this way, ordered a high output. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard before of I heard of a guy that his alternator died, and so he hooked up his solar charge controller output to his starting battery, and he was able to drive it, but only when the sun was out, because when the sun was out he would get voltage. Now I can't recommend that. I don't know if that's safe, because well, I guess if you set your solar charge controller to lead acid, then you should be fine. So yeah, you could do that as long as you set your solar charge controller to flooded or sealed lead acid. Then in theory you could do that as well. So kind of cool to have those workarounds. Carefree Highway says pay once, buy OEM. I agree. John C says Sir on Dave for the win. I agree with that. Sir on Dave was super helpful. I'm grateful. I have a debt now to Sir on Dave. If he needs some help on his conversion or some solar help, I'm definitely gonna be there as soon as the phone rings. Come wind or high water, I'm gonna be there, help him out, repay the favor. I appreciate it. Chris B with a super chat says, thanks for the advice. I appreciate it, Chris B. I hope it's helpful. I just want to kind of share my experience with you guys so you can hopefully leverage some of that information for you. So we're coming up on, wait, what time is it? We're coming up on 7 o'clock. I just want to kind of recap some stuff. If you're living the nomad life, you will eventually break down. It's just going to happen. Even, regular cars break down. No matter what vehicle you own, it's going to break down at some point, right? The difference is just when you're living in your vehicle, you're driving it a lot more. So the chances of breaking down are going to be higher. So you're going to have a breakdown eventually. So just mentally understand it's going to happen, but also try to just have the mindset of like, I have everything I need in the van. I'm home. Everything's fine. And it's all just part of the adventure. Even though it might be an inconvenience, it might not be at a time or a location that you want it to be. Just remember, it's part of the experience. It's all going to work out. And it always does. It always does work out. So mindset is the first piece. The next piece to consider is, can you make the repair yourself? You can try working with this app, Tinker, and maybe consult a mechanic with Tinker. That might be helpful to see if maybe you can do it yourself. And if it is something you could do yourself and you don't have a vehicle because your car's broken down or it's not drivable, you could consider, depending on your location, calling an Uber. You could consider taking an Uber to an auto parts store. It's probably still cheaper than going to a mechanic. So that's something to start with. Can you do it yourself? Yes or no? If yes, attempt the repair yourself. Just like I changed out my tire on the side of the highway, changed out my e-brake in the forest of New Mexico. So if you can repair it yourself, by all means do that. If you cannot, then you want to seek out a mechanic. So your options are either, if it's drivable, take it to a mechanic. If it's not drivable, either call out a mobile mechanic who might be able to fix it on location, or call a tow truck company and have it towed to the mechanic. And so that's kind of the order of operations. And I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go to a mechanic, try to pre-negotiate that you could stay in the vehicle. You know, maybe not while they're working on it, but overnight, right? So maybe overnight, in between them working on it, you could stay in the vehicle so you don't have to get a hotel. And then during the day, while they're working on it, you can hang out in the waiting room, or you can walk to a nearby restaurant or a park or a coffee shop or whatever. But, you know, just try to make the day out of it. Try to have a good time in the process. So I feel like that's kind of the main things to consider as far as a breakdown goes. And I hope it's helpful. Mischief Maker OG says, tickets written last weekend, 3 more hit stealth parking in San Diego. Yeah, I saw something come across the San Diego Facebook page, and they said that the police are going to be cracking down hard on overnight parking in specifically Mission Bay. There's a lot of folks here. It's a little oversaturated, and there's a lot of just big ass RVs just parked up all over the place, and people parked out for like multiple days in a row. Anyway, the message she left, she said she works somehow with the city or for the city, and she had information that starting the first of the year, they were going to be like completely banning overnight parking in Mission Bay, just heavy ticket campaign. She said they want everybody west of the I-5 freeway. So take that for what it is, but there's definitely a possibility we are in the final hours of van life in Mission Bay. It's possible. Charles Serratos with the super chat. Thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate you. He says, thanks for all the good knowledge and information. Appreciate you, Charles. And that's your first super chat on a live stream. The first one. Nomad Brad gets the first. I appreciate you, man. I'm happy to hear you guys are enjoying the content. New TYP or Newt YP says, hey Brad, great channel. 95% of the time, the radiator fails at the end tanks, being they are plastic. Full aluminum is best, but costly. Yeah, I agree. You can see the cracks in that tank when I showed it earlier. And here's the picture right here. And yeah, even though the rig only has 130-something thousand miles, it's still from 2007. So you're talking about, 14, 15 years that this thing's been around and alive and just cooked and hot and cold and expansion and contraction. So I'm not surprised, just based on age, and plastics especially break down over time. So I'm not surprised about what happened to it. I wish it didn't, but of course I'm happy it happened where it did. Also, he says, stop leak isn't the greatest. Only in a pinch, they clog up the coolant system, heater core, and thermostat. Yeah, I agree. I know stop leak is not the best solution. My thought was to put the stop leak in just so I could drive it back to Yuma, which is about a 3-hour drive to my dad's house. And then I was going to replace the radiator and flush out the whole cooling system there. And I'm hoping that in that short amount of time, I would have been able to flush it out enough that it didn't do any damage. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely not the best choice. Matt AK says, my dad had that happen. Stop leak clogged his radiator and it blew a big hole in it 3 hours from home. Dang. Yeah, that's no bueno. Jay Stewart says, back in the day, you'd take them to a radiator shop and they'd braze the hole and clean it. Paint it like new, no plastic. Yeah, I agree with you, Jay. Back in the day when metal was metal and men were men. I know they do make all metal radiators. I think they're just probably pretty expensive. Probably like racing radiator. What do we got? I mean, honestly, they don't look that crazy. I mean, this is just a random one, right? This is for a big block Mopar. This is not for my vehicle. But look, all aluminum. You can see the top is metal, not plastic. And it's only 350 bucks, which, you know, that's really not a bad price. I'm surprised. What else we got? Here's one from Alloy Works. Look at that. For a Chevy Blazer, $270. Actually, that's a lot better. Look at that. That looks beautiful. That's a lot better than I expected. I thought it'd be like 500 or 600 bucks for an all metal radiator. That's actually not bad. All right, let's cruise down the comments. If you guys have any questions as we kind of wrap up for the evening, go ahead and drop them in the chat now, and I'll try to get to everybody's questions. Anything van life, whatever you got, let me know. Wayward Captain says new windshield wipers. I need new windshield wipers. Mine are pretty melty. Saron Dave says we used to have ATV side-by-sides and dirt bike radiators repaired like that. Yeah, it's a shame everything goes to plastic now. Jay Stewart says we're old school. I hear you, brother. RV the Great says, I just remember the question I had from my last video. It ended before I could ask, but why don't you have people call in to do some live stream talking? I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought about that before. What would we talk about? Let me ask the chat. Would you guys be interested in call-ins? I guess it would be like a radio show. Like people would share their experiences maybe. I don't know. I'm open to it. Whatever the people want. Tell me, drop a message in the chat if you would be interested in A, watching a live stream that has callers, but B, if you would be interested in being a caller, because that's the hardest part. Is it's one thing to just watch content of people calling in, but it's a whole nother thing to be in the spotlight, that you're the one doing the talking. So let me know in the comments if that's something that interests you. Thanks for dropping that in the chat. That's an interesting suggestion. Tinker DIY app. Yes, Diana, thanks for mentioning that. That's another takeaway from tonight's chat. Download the Tinker DIY app. It might just save your bacon. Edge with a super chat says, good luck on your journeys, nomads. Thank you, Edge. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. Keeps the wheels turning, keeps the fuel in the tank. Cruising down. Digital Nomad says, are you planning on getting or building another rig? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The reason I'm selling, only reason I'm selling this vehicle is because I need a bigger one. All my solar parts are just taking up too much space. Everything is scattered around in the van. When I built out this van, I had no intentions of starting a solar installation company. And then I did. And so I've ran out of space. And the reason I built out this size specifically is because I like how easy it is to park. The reality is, if I didn't have all this stuff that I have, it really is the perfect size rig. I would stick with this rig. but I just have too much tools and inventory now. I can't do it. I'm stepping over boxes and Amazon packages. It's a nightmare. Christian says, hi, first time in live. Welcome, Christian. Happy to have you here. Always happy to have new members. Digital Nomad says, I'm living in my ProMaster in Texas. I've been thinking of going to California. Are the gas prices as bad? Digital Nomad, here's the thing. I can speak from experience because I lived in Texas. I lived in Austin, Texas, in my last van for like a year and a half. Gas is way cheaper in Texas. It was like $2.50 a gallon when I came here a year and a half ago. Anyway, here's the thing. In Texas, gas is cheaper, but everything is far apart. Like in Texas, every town is like an hour drive away. It's crazy. Texas is so big. In California, gas is more expensive. Like right now in San Diego, it's gone down a little bit, but it's about $4 a gallon. However, everything is very, very close. Especially here in San Diego, anything you need is within 10 miles. I mean, the beach, the grocery store, Planet Fitness, any shopping, anything, literally anything you could want is within a 10-mile radius. And it's pretty much the same for any of the major towns on the coast. So if you want to go to LA or Santa Monica, you don't have to drive that far. So yes, gas is more expensive, but you use less of it, and it's freaking beautiful. California has some of the best weather in the country. So when you're living in a vehicle and you're exposed to the weather conditions on a 24-hour basis, it kind of makes sense to come to California. I'm not telling you to do that, but especially if you're in Texas now, winters get pretty brutal. Winters in California will definitely be better, but you might consider stopping off in Arizona. Arizona is going to be closer than California, and winters there are the best. Blue sky, sunshine every day, and Arizona is super easy to van life. They don't care. There's no crackdowns. You park anywhere you want. Nobody hassles you. Tons of parking. I really prefer Arizona for van life. California is beautiful and the beaches are wonderful, and for me there's more money, there's more work here, there's more people with money that need solar done. But if we're just talking about where, like, the ideal spot to be a nomad right now, without those two considerations, I think Arizona is a better spot. Chris B says, when building out and living at the same time, where do you build it out? Random rural land. So yeah, any public land. My plan is to build it out over the winter and spring in Arizona. So there's tons of free BLM land in Arizona where you can stay in one spot up to 2 weeks. So that's the plan. Sell this rig, buy a new one, head to Arizona, start the build out. Also, if you watched my videos from this summer, we did a ton of build outs here in California on Fiesta Island. So you can get creative. It doesn't necessarily have to be on public land. Videos. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. So if we go back, like here, we did a bunch of building actually on the beach in Fiesta Island this summer. So that's another consideration. It depends how the laws go in San Diego. If they crack down on overnight parking, then it probably won't. Did I just lose internet? Looks like I lost internet. If they crack down on public parking overnight here in San Diego, I probably won't come to Fiesta Island. But anyway, something to consider. You can stay on public land or, yeah, rural land out in the country. Okay, let's scroll through the chat. What do the people have to say? Let me go here. Dre says that, so in response to having people call into the live stream, Dre says that would be dope. Dre says video chat with other people with rigs is what Dre is suggesting. Avery Doberman says, I'd call in. I've seen these get chaotic, though. Okay. Avery would call in. John says, why not just try it out and see how you like it? Dustin says, I watch a call-in show before this live stream. Okay. Dustin, I'm curious, is it a Nomad call-in show or is it just a regular call-in show? What's the topic of the call-in show you watch? I'm curious. CC Priest, yo, B-Rad, what setting do you cook in your Instant Pot? The setting varies depending on what I'm cooking. I always use... what does the button say? I don't use any of the presets. I always just set the time and then hit cook. And then depending on what I'm cooking, the time varies. And I always cook on high. That might be your question. I always cook on high. Newt YP says, after selling your current van, what's the next project? A 16-foot box truck is what I'm going to build. This is the 12-foot. I'm going to step up to a 16-foot. Diana Sailor says, thank you for another great live. Wednesdays are my favorite days. Thank you, Diana. That is too sweet. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be the highlight of your week and happy to have you here. You're always bringing the good vibes, sticking around, asking the questions. I appreciate it. Too much traffic in California. I agree. That's one downside to California. I don't like all the traffic, all the people. It's a lot. Like, when you go from living in the desert or the forest or other states that are less populated, and then you come to California, there's like a lot of people, a lot of energy, a lot of like hustle and bustle, and it kind of wears me out. I was happy to get out of here to go back to Yuma, and so I came back for a job, but like I'm itching to leave again. It's just kind of too much for me. Real Cruz says, I want the same truck you have. I was thinking of doing undermount toolboxes. That's a great idea. I did a tour of a box truck with same box truck as mine with undermount toolboxes, and it looked really, really awesome. If you go to my channel and go to my videos, this one right here, can you see this? Yeah. This one right here, box truck tours in the Arizona desert.
About rain, but not be like super claustrophobic.
So my buddy William Marshall built out the same rig as me. Here it is right here. And he has the undermount toolboxes. So you can see it right there. He just cut them right into that skirting. And so he has two on one side and I think two on the other side. And it looks super cool. And that's something I would do to this box truck if I was going to keep it. But because I'm selling it, I will do this on the next build. But I really like the undermount toolboxes. It looks clean. Carefree Highway says, how long before San Diego gets its parking regs back? Yeah, I was just talking about that. I think it's coming at the end of the year. Someone in San Diego Facebook says they're going to start enforcing it again the first of the year. So it could be over for van life in San Diego for now. Robert asks the length. My box truck is 21 feet bumper to bumper. I just measured it about a month ago. Charles Serrato says, as a snowbird nomad, where's the best place to have orders sent to? I assume you mean packages. So you can have stuff sent general delivery to most U.S. post offices. If you don't know how, just Google it. How do I send general delivery? It's easy. That's one option. The next thing you can do is you can have like a local mailbox place, like mailboxes, etc., whatever. Wherever you're at, just open Google and type in mailbox, mailbox store, mailbox shop, and any of those shipping places, most of them will, you can either set up an account if you're going to be there for a long time, but if you're not, most of them will accept a package and hold it for you for a small fee. So I did that in Austin, Texas, and they charged me $5 a package. And for me, that was a great value. So those are kind of your two best options. Also, Amazon has their locker system. So if you order something on Amazon, they have Prime lockers all over the country. You can have Amazon products sent to those lockers. Dre says thoughts on Bob moving into a Forester. I think he's crazy. That's my thoughts on it. He was in a cargo van, a Chevy Express, for many, many years with a high top. He moved into an ambulance, which makes sense to me. It's a little more space. Now he's in a Forester, which is nuts. I don't understand why he's in a Forester. I think he might have just been getting bored. You know, that's all I can think of, is he just wanted to shake up his channel, and maybe he wanted to make some new content. And the other thing I will mention is a lot of Bob's viewers are in cars and minivans and SUVs, and they're in smaller spaces. So it's possible he's doing it, not this is negative, but it's possible he's doing it so that he can make video content that is relatable to his viewers. And another thing I'll say is I don't know that he sold his ambulance. I think he might have just bought that Subaru. Yeah, Bob Wells does have land, and he still has the ambulance. Yeah, so I think he just bought that Subaru, and he's making these videos so that he can have some new, different content for his channel. But I cannot fathom in my mind how you could go from an ambulance with walking around room and a toilet to living in a Subaru Forester. It doesn't make sense to me, especially at his age. I mean, you got to be having some aches and pains. I can't imagine trying to sleep in a Subaru. It's crazy. Dustin says it's a call-in show for atheism and science. Cool, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm down with science, and I'm on the fence with, I don't want to get into religion and politics and stuff, but I'm on the fence, bro. I'm more agnostic. I don't really believe there's enough evidence to believe anything 100%, right? Whether we're talking about Big Bang or Bible, I'm just open to all kinds of possibilities. Let's see what we got. Neil says, love all your content. Really appreciate everything you do for us. Do you prefer SoCal over NorCal? You know what? I prefer NorCal because NorCal is less populated. NorCal has beautiful beaches. It's different. It's more rugged, but it's beautiful up there. And even Southern Oregon, like the most southern beaches in Oregon, like Gold Beach. Gold Beach is one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen in my life. And there's nobody there because there's no town. There's literally like a pizza shop, and that's it. Like, look at this. This is Gold Beach, Oregon. And I mean, I've stayed there. Like, this is legit what it looks like. Like, look at that. Wide open, beautiful wide open sand, tons of cool rocks, tide pools to explore, and there's nobody there because the town is non-existent. So honestly, I prefer this type of stuff, which Northern Cali and Southern Oregon is basically the same thing. And so the NorCal beaches look very similar to this. I 100% prefer NorCal, but it's further away. So like for me, I was in Arizona. It's only 3 hours to hop over to SoCal and have work and hang at the beach. But to drive to NorCal, now we're talking about, 10-hour drive, that's a whole different story. So anyway, yeah, I would prefer NorCal just for its smaller population. And the beaches are way less crowded. John says he's going to build on his land. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad Bob has land. And yeah, he should do some homesteading content. Robin says, we love your van. You're so very smart. We're impressed. Glad we found you. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Carefree Highway says, Bob's got some explaining to do about potty break in a Subaru. Yeah, that's my question. Like, how do you go to the bathroom in a Subaru? Because the type of camping Bob does, he's not in cities. He's way out in the woods. He's out on BLM land. He's 10 miles down a forest road. So it's like, if you gotta make a number two, and it's raining or it's dark out, like, how are you making that happen? I don't even want to think about it. Robert Allman says, have you seen people surf at Gold Beach? I have not. I've not seen people surfing. I assume the surfing conditions are better in SoCal because that's where everybody does it. I think the water's colder up in NorCal, and I don't know what the surfing conditions are like, but I assume surfing is better in SoCal because that's where everybody has always done it at Huntington Beach, La Jolla, San Diego. So I would just assume the surfing is better down here. All right, guys, that's it for me. It is 7:30 p.m. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm hungry and tired. I'm gonna go make some food. If you guys are interested in a call-in show, I don't know. Let me know. If you have something to say, if you would want to be somebody to call in, send me an email, nomadbrad503@gmail.com. Send me an email and tell me you would be interested in doing a call-in show, and maybe we'll try to set it up and see how it works. I appreciate everybody for dropping by. There will be a new video coming out this Sunday, and then next Wednesday we will have a live stream. I fully intend to be on the road traveling. I have a little road trip planned. I was going to initially leave the other day, but my radiator sprung a leak. But I'm fully intending to travel up to some remote parts of California, over to Arizona, do a big loop, do some exploring, check out some really fun places. So next Wednesday's live stream should be awesome in a new location, and it should be exciting. So join in next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.